The alpha werewolf has to face his revived-from-death girlfriend to save his pack. Can he save both his girlfriend and his pack, or does he need to choose one? Let's find out in the 2023 film Teen Wolf, the movie. One rainy night in the country of Japan, a mysterious hooded man visits a restaurant run by a couple named Liam and Hikari looking for a jar that has a Triskelion symbol engraved on it. The jar was made from the wood of a sacred tree that used to capture a dark kitsune, which is a trickster spirit called the Nogitsune. At this time, Hikari takes the wooden jar outside with Liam, who turns out to be a werewolf, and the armed customers fight the mysterious man. Not long after, the man finds Hikari outside and shoots her, causing her to drop the wooden jar. Liam then shows up and jumps on the man, but gets greeted with a bullet instead. Defeated, Liam and Hikari try to convince the man not to free the Nogitsune, but he does not listen to their plea. As he holds the jar, the Nogitsune inside orders him to open it. However, before doing so, the man makes a deal with the evil spirit, saying that they will both benefit from what he wants. The mystery man wants retribution against a man named Scott, an alpha werewolf who happens to be one of the people who trapped the Nogitsune in the wooden jar made from a magical tree called Nemeton. With their deal finally sealed, the mystery man opens the jar and a firefly flies out of it. Meanwhile, Scott is now running an animal shelter beside Dr. Deaton's veterinary clinic in Los Angeles. One night, Chris, the father of Scott's late girlfriend Allison, visits him. Chris talks about how his daughter always shows up in his dreams, and lately she starts whispering a word to him. And to his surprise, Scott utters the word Bardo, which happens to be the same word that Allison whispered to him. Scott says he was on the phone with a client a few days ago, but instead of writing the client's number, he ends up writing the word Bardo unconsciously. Bardo is a term that describes a state between life and death, and that is why Chris believes that Allison is still not crossing into the afterlife. Hearing this, Deaton, Scott's mentor on all things supernatural, states that Bardo is just a concept and they can't be sure if Allison is stuck between life and death. Yet, Chris is insisting that he wants to help her daughter through a ritual. He thinks they all need to go back to Beacon Hills so they can have certain information about this ritual. Also, it needs to be done during the incoming full moon, or they will never get another chance to try it again. Deaton expresses his doubts about it, but he leaves the decision to Scott, who at first is also uncertain. But when Chris shows him the sword that killed Allison, he decides to do it and calls a friend for help. The next day, Lydia, Allison's best friend, and a banshee seems to get some kind of vision and starts scribbling things on a bunch of paper. After that, she receives a message from Scott. Meanwhile, in Beacon Hills, a teen named Eli steals a Jeep from his father's auto repair shop. Unfortunately for him, he's spotted by a local police deputy named Parrish when he drives the Jeep past the officer's car. Parrish then informs Police Deputy Mason, who's currently at the crime scene of the forest fire, about it. As it turns out, this is not the first time that Eli stole that certain Jeep. Mason passes this information onto Sheriff Stilinski, who then notifies Derek, Eli's father. At this time, Derek shows up and tells Stilinski that it was a chemical accelerant that started the fire. Parrish then calls Mason again, interrupting their conversation. Seeing that the deputy doesn't answer the phone in front of him, Derek thinks that it must have something to do with Eli, which Stilinski confirms. At home, the father and son argue about Eli constantly stealing the Jeep until their argument comes to the topic of Eli not being able to show any sign of being a werewolf. Eli thinks that he's not like his father, but Derek points out that being a werewolf runs in their family. All the while, Parrish brings the Jeep back to Derek's auto repair shop. There, he meets with another werewolf named Malia and spends a sexy time with her. On the other side of Beacon Hills, Scott and Lydia meet in the place where Allison died. After briefly talking about Allison, Lydia tells Scott that they need a handful of soil from the ground where Allison died. After getting enough soil, the two of them meet with Chris, who asks what's the next step that they need to do. This is when Lydia pulls out scribblings from her bag, and Jackson, another friend of hers and Allison's, shows up. As it turns out, Lydia has called him for help, which he gladly accepts. Jackson lays down the scribbling on the floor, forming an image of the Nemeton tree with the word Bardo in the middle. At this time, Deaton confronts Chris, asking him if he's been in Japan recently, showing him a silver bullet. Chris says that he has never been to Japan in years, but Deaton continues to ask him with different riddles this time. It's then revealed that Chris has been possessed by Nogitsune. Acting quickly, Deaton throws a special dust on Chris, forcing the evil spirit to leave his body. While this is happening, Scott and Lydia head to the forest where the Nemeton is located. There, they see Malia waiting for them. After a short while, they come across Eli, who turns out to be following them. When they ask why he's following them, Eli says he knows where to find the Nemeton. According to him, he's been sleepwalking for the past months and always ended up in the sacred tree. Due to that, he guides the three of them to where the Nemeton is located. It's already night when they reach the tree, and the three tell Eli that they can take it from there. Eli then goes to Beacon Hills High School and prepares to head out to the field as part of the lacrosse team. And to his shock, Derek and Stilinski are there to watch his game. However, Eli tells his father that he's been on the bench ever since he joined. Hearing this, Derek decides to talk to his son's coach to bargain and let Eli play, leaving him with Stilinski. The sheriff talks to Eli, saying that he is just there to warn him if Eli steals the Jeep one more time, he will send him to jail. Back to the forest, the three decide to proceed without Chris, knowing that it's the only chance they have to help Allison. But after doing the ritual, the tree just absorbs the soil and the weapon that was used to kill Allison, and it's done. Thinking that this is it, the three decide to head out until the tree glows and Scott feels that something is happening. And to his surprise, the tree really brings Allison back to life. Acting quickly, they take her to the hospital where Scott's mother, Melissa, is working. At first, Melissa is surprised to see his son carrying his supposed-to-be dead girlfriend. After checking on her, Melissa tells them that Allison seems normal. However, as Scott goes inside her room, he sees nothing but an empty bed. As it turns out, Allison wakes up with only fragments of her memory. She then changes clothes and tries to escape the hospital when she comes across Malia, whom she easily takes down. Scott sees this and quickly follows her after ensuring that Malia is fine. When Scott catches up to her, she grabs medical scissors and slashes his face using it. Upon seeing that his wounds heal fast, Allison realizes that the man in front of him is not a normal human being. Throwing the scissors at him, Allison continues her escape until she sees her father, Melissa, and Deaton. Confused, she just runs away from everyone. Concurrently, the Nogitsune reaches the Nemeton and it manages to use the tree's power to obtain a physical form. At the police station, Stilinski, Parrish, Mason, and another deputy leave for another forest fire scene, leaving only one officer behind. Shortly after, the lone officer hears a noise coming from the cells. Checking on it, he sees the Nogitsune, who reveals to him that he's a kitsune. Just then, Nogitsune kills the deputy and takes the fox spirit inside him, planning to use it to summon the Anis. Sometime later, Allison gears up when she hears the Nogitsune calling her. Seeing him, Allison points a crossbow at him, asking who he is. The Nogitsune just shapeshifts into Allison's mother, further playing with her emotions and messing up her mind. He eventually convinces her to hunt Derek and Scott, saying that the two werewolves destroyed her family. And with that, the Nogitsune's game begins. Allison then goes to the school and attacks Derek and Eli. Unfortunately for them, Eli gets injured during the game and doesn't know how to heal yet, so he has a hard time escaping. Because of this, Derek faces off against Allison to buy some time for his son. But when he finally realizes who he's fighting off, he changes his mind and decides to run away instead. However, Allison hits his neck with an arrow covered in wolfsbane. She is about to finish him when Liam, Hikari, Scott, and Malia arrive to protect Derek. Seeing Scott, Derek asks him to go and protect Eli, telling him that he should be in the auto repair shop by now. Scott then orders Liam and Hikari to get Stilinski, while he and Malia will bring Derek to Melissa. At home, Melissa attends to Derek, but the loss of blood and wolfsbane is not allowing him to heal as quickly as he normally would. At this moment, Peter, Derek's uncle, shows up and burns the wound using a blowtorch, allowing Derek to heal faster. As they talk about what to do with Allison, they all agree that Allison might just be one of the Nogatsun's illusions, so Scott orders Malia to get Lydia while he goes to the auto repair shop to pick up Eli. Chris, Melissa, and Peter, on the other hand, begin to track Allison. At the police station, Lydia and Jackson arrive only to find the station empty with a dead officer present. Not long after, Liam and Hikari show up, and the two show them the officer's dead body. Examining the corpse, Hikari realizes that the deputy was a kitsune and that Nogatsun must have stolen the fox spirit. Afterward, they check on the detective board to map the areas where the fire occurred recently. There, Liam and Hikari see the picture of the hooded mystery man who attacked them before. With all of the information they get, Liam and Hikari decide to go back to Scott while Lydia and Jackson continue investigating the forest fires. Meanwhile, in the forest, the police are attacked by the Ani, who appear as samurai warriors. During the attack, only Stilinski and Parrish, who turns out to be a hellhound, survive. On the road, Stilinski orders Parrish to go back to the station while he will go check on the auto repair shop. Sometime later, Scott arrives at the auto repair just in time to stop Allison from killing Eli. He blocks her arrow and helps Eli to get away from her, but with his injured foot slowing them down, they cannot get far from her. Left with no other choice, Scott growls at Eli, forcing some of his wolf abilities to manifest, such as healing. Just then, he feels his wound is not healing, realizing that Allison's arrows have wolfsbane. Then, he orders Eli to run as fast as he can while he tries to talk to Allison, who is still not stopping in trying to kill him, so he finally gives in and pulls her close, causing her to stab him with a wolfsbane-coated kunai. This surprises Allison, and a hint of regret appears on her face. She then takes Scott somewhere hidden, and he's almost unconscious. At this time, Nogatsun, in the form of her mother, shows up and urges her to kill Scott right then and there. But something is telling Allison not to. She seems to be confused about who she truly is. A little later, Scott wakes up and convinces Allison to listen to him. Then, he throws her his wallet, showing her a picture of them together when she was still alive. Upon continuing to explain, Allison starts to remember her past little by little. Finally getting an understanding of who she is, she uses the flare to burn the wolfsbane poison out of Scott's wound. He screams in pain until his scream turns into a growl. Meanwhile, by good fortune, Eli comes across Stilinski as soon as he gets into the road. The two of them immediately get to Derek, but they cannot still rest easy as some Ani show up. The same attack happens to Liam and Hikari as well. And after these two separate fights, Derek, Eli, Deaton, Stilinski, Liam, and Hikari are all defeated by the Ani. Malia only survives as she removes the cover of the basement, allowing the sun to shine on the Ani. After that, she immediately goes to the station just in time for Parrish to arrive, and they inform Lydia and Jackson about what happened concerning the Ani. Later in the forest, Lydia, Jackson, Malia, and Parrish look around to find something that might make sense as to why the mysterious hooded man was burning in the forest. Malia decides to gather some weapons that have silver to fight off the Ani and takes Parrish with her. Jackson then sees that most of the trees burned are rowan trees. Hearing this, Lydia realizes that the mystery man is burning the woods to collect some mountain ash, a barrier, and also a gateway to a parallel dimension and their world. But the person who knows how to make the formula that starts the fire was supposed to be dead a long time ago. At the same time, in another dimension, Eli is woken up by Derek. Looking around, he sees that everyone is there, tied up. It is then revealed that when they perished earlier, they are transported to another dimension where the Ani can kill them for real. At this moment, they hear people cheering and screaming in excitement. This is when they realize that they are in a stadium where the finals for the lacrosse game are happening, just in a parallel dimension to it. Afterward, Nogatsun shows up and approaches Eli. At the moment, Scott's growl reaches the parallel dimension, causing Eli and the other werewolf to hear him. Hearing this, the Nogatsun throws Eli back into the real world in the middle of the lacrosse game. Then, Scott and Allison, who happens to be just in the stadium, head out with Allison looking for her father while Scott approaches Eli. Asking what happened, Eli explains the parallel dimension thing to Scott, who seems to understand it immediately. They try to get out of the stadium, but the mountain ash prevents them from leaving. With the night coming soon, all of the people in the stadium are going to die if the Ani comes out. Left with no other choice, Scott and Eli play lacrosse so they can end it as soon as possible. Luckily for them, they managed to win the game, but they know that the real game is just starting. Just outside the stadium, Lydia and Jackson arrive and see that the place is surrounded by mountain ash already. According to Lydia, Parrish is the only one who can break the barrier since he's a hellhound. At this moment, the mystery man who took the wooden bottle in the first place finally shows up and reveals himself to be Adrian, their chemistry teacher who bears a grudge against Scott and his pack, thinking that they left him as bait to die in the hands of a druid. He then shoots Jackson, incapacitating him while he makes Lydia watch what is happening in the parallel dimension. On the other side, Stilinski asks why Derek didn't transform into werewolf when Nogitsune hurts Eli. At this point, Derek reveals that when he transformed once in front of Eli to save him from coyotes, his son got too afraid of him. He's also thinking that the trauma he caused Eli is the reason why he cannot manifest any werewolf ability right now. Meanwhile, Allison is finally found by Chris, Peter, and Melissa. Peter quickly restrains her, planning to kill Allison right then and there. However, Chris throws a kunai at him, which he easily catches. But what he doesn't know is that it's covered in wolfsbane, making him weak. Allison and Chris finally reunite, hugging each other. Yet their reunion is cut short when black smoke appears out of nowhere. Knowing what it is, Allison steps in and ends up being transported to the parallel dimension just in time for Scott and Eli to show up there as well. Together, Scott and Allison fight the Ani while Eli gets to his father to free him, but the Ani just keep on respawning, tiring Scott and Allison. As Lydia and Jackson watch their friends struggle, Jackson reveals to Lydia that the barrier will not work on the Banshee's voice, meaning they will hear her. Because of this, Lydia calls on Allison using her Banshee ability, saving both Allison and Scott. And as she hears Lydia's voice again, Allison completely remembers who she is. However, just as they think everything is going to be fine, Nogitsune appears and holds Eli hostage. Seeing this, Scott tells him to take his life and frees the other instead. Nogitsune agrees and tells he will free everyone if Allison will kill Scott right in front of him. Left with no other choice, Scott tells her to do it, and Allison complies against her will. Nogitsune thinks he already won, but to his surprise, the arrows in Scott's chest start to burn, revealing that Hikari transfers the fox spirit to him earlier. Then, Allison shoots Nogitsune in the head, pissing him off. At this time, more Ani show up, but Parrish arrives with the others as well, killing the Ani with their silver weapons. Jackson also musters up all his strength and stabs Adrian while Lydia steals the gun, pointing it at him. While all of this is happening, Nogitsune escapes, allowing Eli to free Derek. And with their combined strength, Eli finally wolfs out, allowing him and Derek to free the others to join the fight against the Ani. When all of the Ani are defeated, Nogitsune shows up and reveals that when Scott bit him back then, he got the power of a werewolf. He then tears the bandage on his face, showing everyone his true appearance. Seeing this, Scott, Derek, and Eli decide to face him, but they are suddenly transported to separate rooms where Nogitsune has the upper hand. Thinking of a way to beat the enemy in his own world, the three werewolves growl to find each other, allowing them to stop Nogitsune all at once. Then they beat him until they get out of his illusion, allowing Parrish to join the fight. Parrish plans to burn Nogitsune to death, so he tells the werewolves to leave because they might get burned as well. However, Nogitsune is physically strong, so Parrish will not be able to hold him back on his own. Looking at his son, Derek entrusts Eli to Scott, saying that he's part of his pack now, then pushes Scott away. As Derek holds Nogitsune down, Parrish burns him to death, along with Derek, who sacrifices himself for everyone. After the death of Nogitsune, everyone is transported to the real world. Approaching Eli, Scott hugs him, comforting him for losing his father. A few days later, they hold a funeral for Derek and pay respect to him. There, Stilinski finally gives the Jeep to Eli, which turns out to be his son's, Styles' Jeep. He also tells Eli how great of a man his father is. Then, in compliance with his promise to Derek, Scott takes in Eli and they are living now in Los Angeles together with Allison and Deaton. Although she's struggling with her resurrection, she's happy that she gets another chance with Scott. Meanwhile, back in Beacon Hills, Parrish makes sure that Adrian will be admitted to Ishan House, where he will never be able to escape. The movie ends with Eli finally accepting who he truly is, a werewolf that came from the Hale family. Teen Wolf the movie is the continuation and kind of wrapping up of the Teen Wolf series that ended back in 2017. They also give Derek Hale a proper send-off through this film that may or may not be liked by the fans of the series. But as a movie, even though it's close to a 2.5-hour runtime, it's still enjoyable to watch. Also, the film is kind to those who are unfamiliar with the series by providing sufficient lores and backstories. However, first-time viewers will still miss some plot points, like the characters' relationship with each other, of course. Despite that, this film is still satisfying to watch and overall a really good film.